Thank God we've got news. The Cincinnati Reds have pulled off a deal, and when we said right-handed power bat, we of course meant left-handed infielder. The Reds trade for Gavin Lux from the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we're going to tell you all about the deal on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been doing this podcast for 3 years together now, and we've been podcasting collectively about the Cincinnati Reds for an eternity. And we're very glad to be with you here today on an emergency live episode. That's right. We just posted Monday's episode like 2 hours ago, and we're back in your feeds because the Reds have made a move. The Cincinnati Reds have acquired second baseman, played other positions as well. We'll get into that in a minute. Gavin Lux from the Los Angeles Dodgers. They traded outfield prospect Mike Sirota and competitive balance round A pick, the 37th overall pick in next year's draft. To get him, we are going to break down the deal, what it means for the Reds. There are players that have to move if this makes sense, unless the Reds really think he's an outfielder. We'll get into all of that. Plus, we'll get into your reactions as well as we are live on this edition of Locked On Reds that is brought to you by FanDuel. Head on over to FanDuel.com today, and your first bet, win or lose, gets you $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. All right, Steve, let's jump into this because big news. We were talking about Nick Krall is really good at holding things close to the chest. As much as rumors point in one direction or the other, he's really good at just bringing this trade out of left field. And quite frankly, this trade, it's out of left field because we've been saying all offseason, the Reds need a middle-of-the-order guy. The Reds need a right-handed bat, preferably an outfielder. The Reds definitely need to improve the outfielder. So they go and they get a second baseman who hits left-handed, and he's a solid hitter, but I wouldn't call him a middle-of-the-order guy.
Yeah, out of left field would have been nice instead of out of the infield, but here we are. Look, Jeff, here's the deal. We're gonna spend a lot of time talking about what this means and how we evaluate this trade, whether we like it, whether we don't. And for me, it's a great big, well, it depends, because I look at Gavin Lux. He did not play in the outfield at all for the Dodgers in 2024. Granted, he was coming off of injury, so they may have been not wanting to put him in the outfield, but he didn't play out there. He missed all of 2023 with that injury. So you got to go all the way back to 2022 before you see him appear in the outfield, Jeff. As a matter of fact, for his major league career, total 45 games in the outfield. He is much more infielder than outfielder. So it leads me to the question of how they're going to use him. I see him as an infielder, Jeff. I see this is going to be an infield move, and it's going to require some more infield moves. And I think this makes Spencer Steer their left fielder. And I think that means TJ Friedl remains in center field and Freychild is going to be your right fielder. I think that's what this means, but it requires some movement on the infield, which we'll get into here in a little bit, that I think is very, very interesting.
Well, and I find it intriguing because Gavin Lux was not on what I thought would be the Reds' radar. I mean, the Reds essentially give up a guy in Mike Sirota who they just drafted. The Dodgers drafted him whenever he came out of high school. He did not sign with them, though. He instead opted to go to college and play for a couple of years there. And I think that the Dodgers missed him, and they saw an opportunity to acquire him. With the Reds having been in on Gleyber Torres, it's apparent that Nick Krall has really been thinking about infielders, and specifically second baseman. Gleyber Torres signed with the Detroit Tigers, and he was not really a guy that we thought fit this roster, but apparently they have been looking for a second baseman. I think that this definitely means that we're seeing a move when it comes to on this roster. I don't necessarily mean that this pretends another trade. I think that we see Matt McLain move to the outfield. Do we see Matt McLain move within the infield? I thought he was going to be the everyday second baseman. Gavin Lux looks like he's the everyday second baseman. I don't think they're acquiring him to move him around the field.
No, I mean, he has big league time, Jeff. Gavin Lux, that is, has big league time at second base, shortstop, all three outfield positions, and he's played one game, count them, one game at third base. I think it much more likely when you look at his defensive positioning breakdown, he's played 307 games at second base. I think you're right. He's kind of a second baseman. For me, this means that there's some movement with Matt McLain, and I'm not sure that it means he's moving to the outfield. Now, we did see Matt McLain play some outfield in the Arizona Fall League. Matt has said that was simply because guys at the infield positions were, prioritized, and they asked him if he would play outfield so he could get at bats, and he did. What I think is much more likely is we're going to see some movement on the infield. If it were up to me, now this, if the role of Terry Francona was being played by Steve today, my first phone call is to Elly De La Cruz.
Have to fall on a grenade for you now?
Yeah. My phone call is to Elly De La Cruz, and I'm telling him, listen, Elly, I know we talked about shortstop, but I really need you to play third base. You move Elly De La Cruz to third base. It eliminates Marte, Jamer Candelario debacle over there. You have a reliable third baseman. You put Matt McLain at shortstop. You put Gavin Lux at second base. Candelario and CES split time at first, and we are off to the races.
I don't hate that. I still worry a little bit on how much this hinges on Matt McLain's health. And we talked about there are some people that believe he may even have to start the year as the DH, not necessarily at a defensive position of his choice or of Terry Francona's choice, just based on how the shoulder is looking. But I do love the idea of Elly at third. I feel like his arm plays perfectly there. His reaction time and his length, his athleticism, he plays super well at third base. And then that really quells back the need for Noelvi Marte to figure things out this offseason. But Gavin Lux, I think kind of going back to him on this trade, I think overall right now, and I hinge this on those moves, what does the roster look like as we head into opening day with Gavin Lux now on it? But with him, with all that being said, I think this trade gives a B to me. Like, this is the kind of thing that if I were to give it a grade, I would give it a B with an asterisk. And the asterisk is really about how the roster moves, because if we're saying that Matt McLain is now the center fielder, I don't know about that one. I don't love that idea, especially with the health risk and things like that coming off of a long-term injury. How does that play out, especially now the fact he's got to prove he's healthy, he's got to prove he's a viable major leaguer, and then he has to learn a new position? I don't love all of that, but he was a good shortstop. So if you're telling me that is where he moves and that we're moving Elly to third base, I like it a little bit more, and I feel like it's got a little bit less volatility. That's the thing that worries me, is what is the volatility with this trade. But Gavin Lux as a whole, I mean, for the last 2 seasons that he has played, he missed all of 2023 with that torn ACL, but last 2 seasons that he's played, the WAR that he has accumulated has meant that he has been a starter. He's at least been worth a starting position. And as much as we have been excited about a lot of guys, there's not been a lot of proof of that on this roster. Gavin Lux feels a lot more like a solid plan rather than a hope.
No, I agree. I would have no problem if they juggle the infield alignment. We talked on earlier today, as we're recording here, Jeff, we talked earlier today about, if there was a move that kind of solidified things everywhere else, would we be okay moving forward with an outfield of Steer, Friedel, and Freychild? And I'm thinking that's what the outfield is going to look like, especially now that they've brought in another infielder, because that pretty much eliminates the ability to bring Spencer Steer into the infield with any regularity. So for me, we have to ask ourselves, does this make the lineup better? I think it gets you a better defensive alignment on the infield. I think that it lets you tell Spencer Steer, hey, you're going to be batting this spot, you're playing this position, go work on it. This is what you're doing. Let's go. And I think then it also eliminates you having to hope and pray that Noelvi Marte wasn't a product of the PEDs. It eliminates you having to shoehorn in Jamer Candelario at third base, where it now cost me that bottle of Pappy you were going to have to buy for me. It's going to make things a little more stable in my mind. And if that's the case, then I'm okay with that outfield being Steer, Freychild.
That infield is super strong.
Right.
Yeah.
That infield is strong. And then that outfield, again, look, I have done my fair share of running down Stuart Fairchild. There's a lot of things that Stuart Fairchild has done that make you question it, mental lapses, etc. But we've talked to you guys about the numbers, and the numbers of a Frey-Child combination. That outfielder is 15 to 20% better than league average as long as you stick to the platoons. And I think that Tito is smart enough to do that and capable of not letting his ambitions get away from him and letting a collective of people convince him to do other things. I'm okay with that lineup. Now, they got to do it that way. They got to keep McLain on the infield for me to be okay with it. I don't know that I'm all about getting Gavin Lux and then making Matt McLain an outfielder. I don't like that, but I like the idea of strengthening the infield, making it just solid defensively, and then rolling with the outfield you got.
I love what this does for the infield as a whole. And I want to discuss that coming up next. Plus, there's another move that makes me feel really, really good about this trade if the Reds go and make this other move. We'll discuss that coming up next.
You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets to events with Gametime. Jeff and I tell you about Gametime all of the time. This is what we use. We head down to the banks. We find our favorite restaurant. We have some dinner, have a couple drinks, and then right about time for first pitch, we jump on Gametime. We grab our tickets and we head over to the ballpark. We get great deals on tickets. A great feature of Gametime. You go on there, you get all-in pricing. You know exactly what you're going to pay for the tickets that you're looking at. If you're on the road and you're going to a venue that you've never been to before, well, they've got you covered there as well because they show you a view from your seat. You're going to know exactly what it is that you are getting. Just head over to Gametime today, download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off their already greatly reduced prices. Terms do apply. Again, just create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Thanks for being live with us here on YouTube for this breaking news as the Reds trade for Gavin Lux from the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you can't watch us here on YouTube or you can't join us for a live, make sure you're subscribed to the audio feeds. We're in pretty much every single one of them. You can take us on the road with you, in the car, to the gym, on a walk. We'd be happy to talk baseball with you wherever you are. All right, Jeff, the Reds trade for Gavin Lux. They send Mike Sirota and a compensatory A pick, number 37 in the next draft. They get Gavin Lux in return, pretty much a straight 1-for-1. I don't really feel like this cost very much, Jeff. You look at this, obviously they gave up somebody, but as we were prepping to go live, I said to you, was Sirota going to play an outfield position in 2025? We both said no. So in my mind, they didn't give up anything. They gave up 2 draft picks that may or may not pan out for, somebody we know what we're getting. And that was my condition, right? We've said this for the last 2 weeks. My condition for any trade of anything from the minor leagues was I want a known commodity. I want to know what we're getting. We're getting a 2+ WAR guy back that can play a couple positions. I'm okay with that.
Well, and the roster got better, and then the chases are still here. Cam Collier is still here. Edwin Arroyo's still here. I think this is a solid move. And I do see, and I've seen lots of varying reactions to the Mike Sirota part of this trade. There's been some folks that feel like that was an overpay, and there's been a lot of folks that feel like the Reds got Gavin Lux on a really good bargain of a trade. So I think if you kind of average everything out, this is a fine deal. And really, it's just all about how the roster moves. Gavin Lux is better than Jonathan India. I firmly believe that. He's a better glove and a more solid bat. I don't think the on-base percentage, I think Jonathan India had a better on-base percentage, but every part else of his game, Gavin Lux is better than him overall for his entire career.
Because remember, to that point, Nick Krall looked in cameras this offseason and said, well, we're looking at India to play second base, some third base, maybe some outfield reps. He couldn't play defensively very well at second base. Last year was his first time in his career he had positive outs above average just at his home position. At least with Lux, we know that he can reasonably represent himself at all of those other defensive positions.
Yeah, I mean, solidly, I wouldn't say that he's going to win any gold gloves, but you feel fine with him there defensively. But it's really about what this means for the rest of the roster. And if your take is correct. And if that is how the Reds move, if they put Matt McLain at shortstop, they put Elly De La Cruz at third base, Gavin Lux at second, and then we're hopefully talking about either a healthy CES or a healthy Jamer Candelario playing first base, then we feel really good about that infield defensive alignment. The lineup is going to be interesting to me, though, because where does Gavin Lux fit into the lineup? I'm not sitting him at 3 or 4 and feeling good about that. But is he a guy that you could put at 5 or 6? Yeah. That's the thing, though, with this is that it feels like there is a number of guys on this roster that you could put at the 5 or 6 position. And if McLain is healthy, I think he probably hits second. So then Elly would hit third. So then who is your cleanup hitter is the main question now that the Reds need to answer.
Right. And again, as our second show of the day, we tiptoed around whether or not they have the power bat that they need. I don't think that they do. They don't have a known commodity that's that bat. Now, we can fall back into the hope category, right? We can hope that Tyler Stevenson builds on what he did and hits more than 20 home runs. We can hope that Spencer Steer rebounds and can get you to 30 home runs or more. Then you're having a different conversation. But today, as the roster is constructed, no, they don't have that guy. They're going to have to find that guy, or they're going to have to stick somebody in there and just kind of hope and pray that it comes together. But that guy doesn't exist as a known commodity right now. And I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that. I'm not going to try and say, well, yeah, but they've got this guy and they've got that guy. They have a lot of potential to have that guy. They don't have that guy.
And that's what kind of leads me to this. And I'm not saying that Randal Grichuk is your fourth hitter, but I feel better about this move if you go sign Randal Grichuk, because then you solidify the depth of your outfield. I believe that he is the kind of guy you could pair with Spencer Steer, or you could pair with TJ Friedl or something like that, and kind of move around the defensive alignments a little bit with how that all works, and kind of give Friedl some rest, give Steer some rest, maybe move Steer to DH whenever Grichuk plays. But Grichuk is very, very good against left-handed pitching, and he's pretty solid against right-handed. He's not unusable against right-handed pitching. Is kind of what I mean. You could even maybe upgrade the Fairchild platoon a little bit if you were to sign Grichuk, and then you could make Fairchild your fifth outfielder, which I think is the perfect role for him. Like the fourth outfielder feels like his ceiling. I would never say that Stuart Fairchild's an everyday outfielder, but no. Gavin Lux really opens up a lot of those opportunities with this deal. I still feel, Steve, like this is a solid deal, but yet again, kind of like with the Brady Singer trade, kind of like with bringing Nick Martinez back, kind of like with, acquiring Jose Trevino for Fernando Cruz. These all feel like secondary moves. What is the main move? Like if Gavin Lux is the main move of the offseason, I still kind of have questions.
No, if this is the main, if this is the one, I'm unmoved.
Offseason gets like a C-, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could squint your way into a B- with the stability of the starting rotation now and the addressing of the bullpen. Like maybe, but you'd have to squint really hard to get there. Someone, Branch Brown in the comment says that Nick Cross playing Connect 4. Yeah, maybe that might be what's going on. I hope there's another. I'm with you, though. I hope there's another move, Jeff. I hope there's something else. This was initially reported. I saw earlier in the chat, you guys were asking about the possible New York Yankees connection. Jim Bowden had initially leaned into that, but very quickly sent a tweet behind it that said, no, I've confirmed that's not happening. The Reds are looking at Gavin Lux as being part of this team. So, there's not a secondary move there involving Lux for an outfielder. But I'm with you. They still need to go sign an outfielder. And if they go get an outfielder, we're having a much different conversation, because once again, they will find themselves in a position of having a little bit of surplus. And we can definitely then not count on guys in the hope category like Noelvi Marte. We can know right out of the gate, he's starting out in AAA. We don't have to worry about that. We've got a decent lineup. Here's how it's constructed. Let's go. They're an outfielder away from being able to say that. With this, there's still a lot of questions. So, like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do it? Who's going to be willing to move? Who's going to budge? Those are different conversations. I'm looking forward to Nick Craw addressing this and maybe enlightening us a little bit of exactly what the Reds are thinking. He may surprise us all, Jeff, and come out and be like, Lux is playing left field, guys. That's what we're doing with him. And then, we start over at square one. But for me, that's not what the tea leaves are telling me.
Lux is the left fielder. I think I changed my grade on this trade. But no, I'm with you there. I think depending on the out, if they go and they get a Grichuk, I'd give him a B for the offseason. You missed out on an A with Teoscar Hernandez, in my opinion. I think that was kind of the guy that was going to make it an A. Or if you go get Steve, they did not give up anybody that I think would be a kicker in a Luis Robert trade. They could still get Luis Robert, and then we're talking A. Robert. We're talking A for the offseason if that's what they ended up doing. But it's all about what comes next. And I like this. And you mentioned Branch just a moment ago. He had a great take really early on in the show, right as we began. He said, so not that one, different one. It went away from me. There we go. The Reds are getting what they want, or not getting what they want, need. They're getting what they can. And I find that intriguing. And I think that's where we will begin our third segment here coming up next. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need in live bets, same-game parlays, prop bets, so much more. There's so much to check out over on FanDuel, including some great MLB futures. In fact, they've got odds on division winners right now. The Cubs are the favorites to win the NL Central at plus 110. Then you got the Brewers at plus 240. The Reds coming in third, 5-1 odds to win the division. You've got the Cardinals and the Pirates are like on the same level, plus 900 and plus 950 for those two teams. Interesting to see the gap there between the Reds and the Cardinals. Yeah. Anyway, let's get over to FanDuel and check out that $200 in bonus bets guaranteed whether you win or lose. FanDuel is the best way to take advantage of the NFL playoffs because they are an official partner of the NFL. If you cannot watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're literally on all of them. Go check us out there today. And Steve, with this big move, I love, and I say big move, I'm just happy that the Reds made a move that we are worthy of discussing here, because they also traded for Owen White earlier in the day, just in case anybody didn't see that. Minor league depth, really, when it comes to Owen White. So anyway, we mentioned Owen White today. I told you that I wouldn't, and we just did, because I'm happy about this deal. But I kind of agree with Branch's point. And going back to what he had mentioned, he said that they're getting what they can. And I feel like that's been the reason that we've seen these moves, that as much as we want to look for the A1A move, the move that's you're going to set it up on a pedestal, you're going to have a press conference about it, all that different stuff, all the metaphors. I feel like the Reds have put together a solid, if not spectacular, offseason. And that is something that was kind of a hallmark for like the Terry Francona Guardians era. The Guardians didn't go out and just spend all the money because they had Terry Francona in tow. The Red Sox did because they were a big market. And the Reds are not a big market. The Reds are more closer to what the Guardians' financial situation is. But the Guardians were a well-run organization that always felt like they had somebody in case they lost somebody. And I think that that's really what we're starting to see here. Like Gavin Lux, while he's not like this flashy addition and so much better than Jonathan India, he does what Jonathan India couldn't do. And you mentioned it earlier. They wanted Jonathan India to play multiple positions. He can't. Gavin Lux can. And he's the kind of guy that they can move around if they need to. I think he'll mostly play second base like he did for the Dodgers, but we will see him in other positions as well. And I think that to Branch's point, I think the next move that they make will be something along those lines as well. The move that they can make, maybe not necessarily the move that we would dream up or the MLB The Show moment that we have in our minds.
This definitely brings back that flexibility that for a long time the Reds talked about being a core strength of this team, that you could move guys around and do a few different things and not have much a drop off. I think Gavin Lux moving around, I'm much more comfortable with that than I would have been if you were telling me that Jonathan India is playing, one day at left field, one day at right field, one day at second base, one day at third, and one day at DH. If that had been the plan, that's a bad plan. I don't mind doing that with Gavin Lux, and I don't mind the other pieces that he would be displacing moving into those DH positions or other. You can start to see here that just by putting Gavin Lux in this mix, you have now the ability. Spencer Steer can play some first base while somebody else fills in left field. While the list goes on and on. Jeff, is where I'm going with this. And again, a big hinge point of this is going to be, what do they do with the left side of that infield at shortstop and third base? I'm really curious, and I hope that one of the beat writers asks that question when we have the eventual conference call with Nick Krall, because that makes the most sense to me. Not having, Elly De La Cruz locked in at shortstop no matter what. If he's willing to move around for some games, or if the Reds, more accurately, if the Reds are willing to move him around for some games, that really goes a long way into the Reds always having the best version of himself on the field in one shape or another.
Yeah, and to also add on, I saw some folks, a couple of different folks asking about this in the chat, not something that we have covered just yet in the show. Contract situation for Gavin Lux. He is under arbitration for the next 2 years. His estimate, according to Spot Track, for his arbitration number this year is $2.76 million, which would have been less than Jonathan India, I think. Or right thereabouts, I think right around what India made. And then he's under arbitration control for next year as well. So this is a multi-year guy. This is not just a 1-year fix or anything like that. Plus, you have the opportunity to then maybe sign him for 1 or 2 more years if you want to go that route.
Yeah, and I think that I keep telling myself, Jeff, that because, this move is not an expensive move, really doesn't move the payroll needle at all. There's still some hope in the back of my mind that something else is coming. Now, I don't think it's going to be a Santander type contract, but there's still room here to do something. And I kind of hope, I keep, every time we've gone to break, I've been refreshing feeds and jumping all around looking to make sure like another shoe is not dropping right now, because I would really like to see that one more, companion move to really kind of give us an idea of what this team looks like well before we're into February, well before we're heading into spring training. And I think that outfielder signing would be that move. If they go get an outfielder, we kind of have an idea of what the opening day lineup would look like already.
Yeah, and I feel like you pencil Lux in for sure. I don't know that there's too many openings for random guys to like come up and make some sort of impact. It feels like we kind of know. And really, we're getting to the point that outside of maybe like one bullpen spot, unless they go and they make a move for like what we talked about on the earlier show where we mentioned, Buck Farmer or Jacob Junis or whoever, like it feels like the 26-man roster, so long as health is not a problem, which it usually is at some point in spring training, but the 26-man roster kind of feels like it's close to being set already.
Yeah, and then from there, you can kind of really get a good idea of how this team is going to match up if they need to make some more depth moves. And we always see those in the spring when teams begin to cut down. There's a little bit of juggling of minor league personnel to create a little bit of depth. But, I'm not ready to declare, how the Reds look compared to everybody else. There's still some time left for moves to be made. But I feel like they have moved in a positive direction between where they were at the end of 2024 and where this team is right now. And while I still would like that masher in the 4 spot, I'm not going to declare the season over before it starts. I'm not going to put Phil Castellini's PowerPoint up that says the Reds are out of contention before opening day just because they didn't get a 40 home run guy. But some of these other moves have helped ease my mind a little bit. What they did with the starting pitching eased my mind a little bit. What they've done with the bullpen has eased my mind a little bit. And now they create that flexibility with guys that can actually play defense. That eases my mind a little bit. An outfield signing of somebody that's a known commodity quality outfielder, may not be a masher, but a quality outfielder, that would ease my mind even a little bit more. And I'd be comfortable looking at this team to compete in the National League Central. So there's still some work to be done. Nick Krall, if you're watching, you still have some things to do, but
don't go golfing just yet.
Not just yet.
Obviously
I'm
not
not
here in
ready
Cincinnati,
to,
but like on the coast. Yeah.
I'm not ready to poo-poo the season based on what they've done. I think they have moved the team in a positive direction, ever incrementally, right? Ever just so slowly.
Yeah,
there's still time.
There's still time. And that's where I'm at with this. And I keep thinking that there's one more move coming. I've seen a lot of folks in the chat be like, boy, this better mean that there's another move coming, or they better have something else up their sleeves. And my initial response to this when I saw the news was, Gavin Lux isn't an outfielder. Why are we going and getting another guy that's not an outfielder? It seems like Nick Krall is trying to figure out if we can play like a 9-man infield or something, but there's something more coming. I do believe that, and I think that Nick Krall's got something cooking. I saw somebody say that he's playing chess, so we'll see what his next move is. I think Joey Votto probably still beats him in chess, but yeah.
Well, he's been playing the Joey Votto bot. So
that's what it is. He's been playing the Joey
Votto bot. All right, look, Jeff, I think that's probably a good spot to go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to wait and see if there's more moves incoming. Of course, if there are, we're going to be right back here in your feeds with another live. This is going to serve quasi as tomorrow's episode also, guys. So we will jump back in your feed if there's another move. Otherwise, we will see you later in the week. We'll keep monitoring the news. We'll keep monitoring the moves. We'll gather up all that information, bring it right back here to keep you locked on Reds every single day.